Prepare for a long war? NATO chief issues stark warning, says Ukraine will join alliance, eventually.
Here's a summary of the article.
The head of NATO has said Ukraine's allies need to prepare for a long war, warning that if Kyiv stops fighting, their country will no longer exist. Speaking in an interview with Germany's Funke media group published on Sunday, Jens Stoltenberg also said Ukraine would become a member of the military alliance eventually. Therefore, we must prepare ourselves for a long war in Ukraine. The war began in February 2022 when Moscow launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, bringing war back to Europe for the first time in decades. On Ukraine's ambitions to join the alliance, Stoltenberg said, "There is no doubt that Ukraine will eventually be in NATO." The U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff insisted Ukraine's counteroffensive had not failed and that Kyiv's forces have a lot of combat power remaining. At the July summit in Vilnius, NATO leaders agreed that Ukraine could join the alliance once certain conditions are met, and US and German officials made it clear that these would include Kyiv carrying out reforms to protect democracy and the rule of law.
This post received a score of 9,500, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Okay, is there anything we can do to shorten it?
There is, but not without risks that NATO doesn't want to take. NATO directly sending troops in will probably shorten the conflict, but it could escalate into Russia using nukes or other countries jumping in Ukraine with troops of their own. Yeah, it's unlikely, but why risk it when Ukraine will win on their own? Besides, as long as NATO hasn't gone in, they have more soft power to control the international stage and prevent more wars from breaking out. I'm not saying whether that's the best choice or not, but I at least understand some of NATO's reasoning behind their decisions.
NATO sending troops would probably shorten it, would be the greatest understatement in the history of war.
This war in the East will be over by Christmas, I swear dudes. Hitler, 1941.
Nixon will bring the troops home for Christmas. One of them.
I'd have thought the Russian approach would work there. Vietnam is now a US state, and by technicality they are on home soil. Job done.
Crazy that today, after all mankind has been through, we are still talking about major wars with each other.
War is one thing, but land grab in this day and age is just nuts.
Seriously, WTF does Russia need with more land? They've got too much to handle already. This is just Putin wanting to leave his mark on the world. Unfortunate for him that he'll only ever be remembered as a warmonger and a lil bitch.
Greater than seriously, WTF does Russia need with more land? As always, quality is better than quantity. Ukraine is warmer, which makes it more fertile and gives it access to the rest of the world via its ports that don't freeze in the winter. In all fairness, with global warming going as it is, pretty soon most of Russia is going to be temperate year-round and anything south will be scorched earth. But that'll happen after Putin is dead, so it doesn't count for him.
Greater than, with global warming going as it is, pretty soon most of Russia is going to be temperate year-round and anything south will be scorched earth. Not if I scorch it first. Poot, probably. Refreshing to hear that they finally expect and are preparing for a long war. So long as the war continues, Putin is protected by increased patriotic urges to support the motherland when it is in peril, and also the opportunities war provides for censorship and tight control of dissent. Without the war, the consequences of his folly will be exposed. Staying in the war was the whole point of mobilizations.
Don't forget there's elections in both Russia and the US next year. We obviously know who will the Russian elections, but best to be able to use wartime censorship to make sure no serious criticism is made by opponents with a love for prison time. On the US side, pro-Russian candidates like Trump or Ramaswamy would probably mean the US directly pushing Ukraine for territorial concessions with the threat of cutting aid. I am pretty sure the risk of that is why the EU countries have really cranked up long-term aid commitments the last few months, to make sure the Ukrainians can stay in the fight even if the Americans falter.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.